Let's talk about the Chakravyuh from the epic Mahabharata. When you hear that word, what do you think of? A legendary battle, right? The tragic story of a young warrior? Well, today we're going to break down what it really was. One of the most brilliant and, frankly, terrifying military machines ever thought up. Now, most of us probably picture this giant maze made of soldiers. A complex fortress, sure, but a stationary one. The idea is you just find the right path, you fight your way through, and you win. Simple enough, right? Well, you might want to think again, because the reality was so much more horrifying. The Chakravyuh wasn't some structure you could just walk through. No, it was a dynamic, living system designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to pull you in, grind you down, and never, ever let you go. Okay, so let's dive into how this incredible trap actually worked. First thing you need to do is forget that idea of a simple maze. We're talking about a complex spiraling formation that was constantly, and I mean constantly, in motion. The whole thing was built from 7 concentric circles of soldiers. That's right, 7 layers, and each one had a very specific job. They were all designed to work together, kind of like the tiny, intricate gears inside a clock. Except this clock was designed to kill. So here's the really crucial part, the detail that changes everything. The rings were always rotating. And here's what's so brilliant. They rotated in opposite directions. Can you just imagine that? The outer rings are spinning clockwise, but the inner rings are going counterclockwise. It would create total chaos, complete psychological disorientation for anyone unlucky enough to be caught inside. Now, a machine like this doesn't just work by accident. It was built on a few core engineering principles that made it so unbelievably deadly. So let's break down the anatomy of this perfect trap. It really all boils down to 3 lethal principles. First, you've got its unique motion, which we can call kinematic rotation. Then there's something called the density gradient. And finally, its most ingenious feature, and my personal favorite, the self-healing mechanism. And this wasn't just random spinning. Think about it like the precise interlocking gears of a really complex watch. The opposing rotations meant that the second an attacker spotted a weak point, the whole formation had already shifted. It made any kind of strategic attack pretty much impossible. Next up is the density gradient, and this is where it gets even worse for the attacker. The formation literally grew stronger the further you got in. The outer rings, they were foot soldiers, basically there to absorb the first assault. But if you broke through that, you'd suddenly be facing cavalry and war elephants. And if you somehow survived that, you'd find yourself at the very core, face to face with the most elite generals, the Maharathis. These were warriors said to be able to fight thousands of men all at once. The battle literally got harder with every single step you took. And that brings us to its deadliest feature. What do you think happened if you actually managed to kill a soldier and create a gap? Well, the formation's constant rotation would instantly slide another soldier into that empty space. It was like a living wall that just healed itself. Any path you tried to forge would just close up right behind you. So you're probably asking, how on earth did anyone ever get into this thing? Well, this is where the story of the warrior Abhimanyu becomes so important. He famously knew the secret to entering the Chakravyuh, but his knowledge was tragically incomplete. This is the one line everyone remembers from the Mahabharata, right? Legend says he overheard the secret of how to get in while he was still in his mother's womb. The problem was, she fell asleep before the part about getting out was explained. And that one tiny detail sealed his fate. But let's be really clear here. Knowing the way in wasn't about a secret password or a hidden path. It was about understanding a complex, real-time algorithm. It required perfect timing, a kind of mathematical synchronization, to step between the rotating gears of this human machine without being instantly crushed. So, Abhimanyu gets in. And the second he does, those self-healing walls close right behind him, cutting him off completely from his army. He's all alone inside this meat grinder, and now he has to face the final fatal piece of the puzzle. There was no simple way out. This is what military historians would call a suicide trap. See, the algorithm to get out was completely different from the one to get in. From the inside, while you're exhausted, disoriented, and fighting for your life, trying to solve that brand new equation was, well, mathematically next to impossible. I mean, just think about the compounding problem here. You are psychologically shattered by the constant motion. You're physically exhausted from fighting through layers that get progressively harder. You're now up against the best warriors at the center, and every single potential exit you might see is instantly sealed by those self-healing walls. It was a system designed for total, absolute annihilation. So in the end, the great warrior Abhimanyu wasn't just overpowered by more soldiers. He was defeated by a perfect system. A system of kinematic rotation, density gradients, and self-repairing walls. He was defeated by geometry, dynamics. He was defeated by mathematics. It really makes you wonder what other ancient myths are actually just records of a sophisticated, lost science.